It's me again with another country. Sorry if I'm looking a little red as I am a tad sunburnt as I've been out a lot, like nearly all day today. As friends come up from, as my sister's had a mini marathon this morning, then I was out with a friend all afternoon. So yeah. Did have a little bit of a fist bump with a homeless man who might have mentioned it to me. So yeah. So yeah, here we go with the country for today, and we are on Switzerland. Starting off with the history as usual, and here we go. As it was originally inhabited by the Helvetians or Helvetic Celts. So the territory comprising of modern Switzerland came under Roman rule during the Gaelic Wars of the 1st century BC and remained a Roman province until the 4th century AD, and under Roman influence the population reached a high level of civilization and enjoyed a flourishing commerce industry. And important cities like Geneva, Basel and Zurich were linked to military roads that also served as trades between Roman northern tribesmen in Germany and all. After the decline of the Roman Empire, Switzerland was invaded by Germanic tribes from the north and west, and some tribes such as the Alemanni in central and northeastern Switzerland, and the Burgundians who ruled western Switzerland settled there, and in 800 AD the country began to form part of Charlemagne's empire, and later passed under the dominion of the Holy Roman Emperor in the form of the small ecclesiastical and temporal holdings, subject to imperial sovereignty. Another opening of a new important north-south trade route across the Alps in the early 13th century, the empire's rulers began to attach more importance to remote Swiss mountain valleys, which were granted some degree of autonomy from the Habsburgs, and fearful of the popular disturbances flaring up following the death of the Holy Roman Emperor in 1291, the ruling families from Uri, and Unterwalden signed a charter to keep the public peace and pledging mutual support in upholding autonomous administrative and judicial rule. And the anniversary of the charter's signature on the 1st of August 1291 is celebrated in Switzerland as Switzerland's National Day. But going back to the history, and between 1315 and 1388, the Swiss Confederates inflicted 3 crushing defeats on the Habsburgs, whose aspirations to regional dominion clashed with the Swiss self-determination. And during that period, 5 other localities, or cantons in today's world, joined the original 3 and the Swiss Confederation. And buoyed by their defeats, the Swiss Confederates continued expanding their borders by military means, and gained from nowhere. Buoyed by their defeats, the Swiss Confederates continuously expanded their borders by military means and gained formal independence from the Holy Roman Empire in 1499. Routed by the French and Venetians near Milan in 1515, they renounced expansionist policies then the Swiss Confederation had become a union of 13 localities, with a regularly convening Diet administrating the subject territories, and Swiss mercenaries continued for centuries to serve in other armies like the Swiss Guard of the Pope, and is a vestige of this tradition. And other reforms led to the division between the Protestant followers of Zwingli and Calvin in German and French parts of the country, which were respectively Catholic. And despite 2 centuries of civil strife, the common interest in the joint subject territories kept the Swiss Confederation from falling apart. The traffic in the mercenaries, as well as the alienation between the predominantly Protestant Swiss and the Catholic neighbours, kept the Swiss Confederation out of war of the European powers, which formally recognised Swiss neutrality in the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. And the Swiss remained neutral during the War of the First Coalition against revolutionary France, but Napoleon still invaded and annexed much of the country in 1797 and 98, replacing the loose confederation with generally unitary state. And the Congress of Vienna in 1815 re-established the old confederation of sovereign states after and enshrined Switzerland's status of permanent armed neutrality in international law. And in 1848, after a brief civil war between Protestant liberals seeking a centralised nation-state and Catholic conservatives clinging to old order, the majority of Swiss cantons opted for a federal state, modelled on the US Constitution, and the Swiss Constitution established a range of civic liberties and made far-reaching provisions to maintain cantonal autonomy to placate the vanquished Catholic minority, and the Swiss amended their constitution extensively in 1878, establishing a feudal responsibility for defence, trade and legal matters, as well as introducing a direct democracy by popular referendum. To this day, cantonal autonomy and referendum democracy remain trademarks of the Swiss polity, and at the same time, in the 1800s, in the 19th century, and by Switzerland industrialised rapidly, and by 1850, become the second most industrialised country in Europe after Great Britain. And during World War I, serious tensions displayed between German, French and Italian-speaking parts of the country, and Switzerland came close to violating its neutrality, but managed to stay out of hostilities, as labour unrest, culminating in a general strike in 1918, marks the interwar period. But in 1937, employers and largest trade unions concluded a small formal agreement to settle disputes peacefully, which govern workplace relations to the present day. And during World War II, Switzerland came under heavy pressure from fascist powers, which, after the fall of France in 1940, completely surrounded the country, as some political and economic leaders displayed a mood for appeasement. But a combination of tactical accommodation and demonstrative readiness to defend the country helps with the Swiss survive unscathed. And the Cold War enhanced the neutral Switzerland and offered the country a way out of its diplomatic isolation after World War II. And economically, Switzerland integrated itself into the American-led Western post-war order, but it remained reluctant to enter supranational bodies, and Switzerland did not for many decades join the United Nations, but eventually did in 2002, even though Geneva became host to the UN's European headquarters, and the country played an active role in many of the UN's specialised agencies, and Switzerland also remained aloof in the face of European integration efforts, waiting until 1963 to join the Council of Europe, but still remains outside the EU. Instead, Switzerland in 1960 helped form the European Free Trade Area, which did not strive for political union, And following the Cold War, Switzerland joined the Bretton Woods institutions in 1992 and exactly a decade later, as previously mentioned, joined the UN in 2002. So yeah, that was the history. Now for language, as there isn't exactly one official language of Switzerland, but there's 4: German, Italian, French and Romansh. That's right. Like in many countries, language develops as a tool to unify populations around like a national identity. But threats posed by like other languages can threaten national unity, like in Catalonia and all that in Spain. But unlike that, it doesn't really happen in Switzerland in the present day. But Switzerland is a Willens nation, or a nation of the wills. And as this whole state is based on the country's 26 cantons or administrative blocks, each agreeing to work with one another. Now in some senses, Switzerland is a federation rather than a nation. Going back through history, these cantons were fully sovereign states, each with their own borders, armies, customs and language. And apart from the failed Helvetic Republic from 1798 to 1803, there's never been a strong centralised government in Switzerland, which allowed the cantons to retain some level of self-control over their own affairs. And this meant that they were able to continue speaking the various languages without any attempt to impose like one Swiss language kind of thing. And to keep the peace, each canton has the ability to decide its own official language. And the particular language spoken in each canton represents both the geographical and cultural boundaries of Switzerland and the influence of the closest country to them. Towards the south, across the Alps, is Italian, which is spoken in just across the border in Italy. Then to the west is French, while German is spoken in central and eastern parts of Switzerland. Romansh is predominantly spoken in the southwest in the canton of Graubünden, where Italian and German are also official languages. And the cantons of Valais, Fribourg and Bern are also officially bilingual, both speaking French and German. And in fact, it is that there is an invisible line that splits French and German speaking parts of Switzerland. And on both sides there's Rusty Graben, literally meaning rusty, meaning the rusted line. Like rusty being a potato dish eaten on the German side but not on the French. So yeah, but a lot of Swiss speak English today, so the English speaking world might not have too much problems, but it's like it doesn't exactly hurt to pick up a few phrase books and learn a few phrases. So yeah, and the last section of legends. So here we go. As you can kind of, in the cold weather, sit down to some wine and maybe some cheese and listen to a few of them. I'm not saying go. No, it's like I'm not saying go to Snow Island. No, not us. Those in the UK are currently in the middle of a heat wave, and sort of sunburn around here. Yeah. And then there's tales like Anna Gordy, who was the last witch executed in Europe, and the child-eating ogre of Bern. So yeah, starting off with Barbegazi. That's like who if it comes to people who've had the misfortune of being up close and personal with an avalanche, As you may see, a creature with massive feet surfing the crest of a snowy wave. At least that's nice, like at least how it's being told anyway. Said creature is a Barbiga, not unlike a dwarf or gnome. He lives in the mountains and skis, using his big feet, like flat feet. They aren't said to be dangerous and in fact rather helpful to like people who are lost. So it's kind of a little handy really. There's Saint Beatus, that beats a dragon. As we all love people slaying dragons. And as we add Saint Beatus to the list, and back in the first century, Saint Beatus went off searching some peace and quiet, and instead found a cave under occupation of a fire-breathing serpent, and it was kind of not really a problem. And he kind of kicked him out and set up his new digs. And he can said to visit his caves in wander deep into the Beatenberg mountain. Then there's a child eater of Bern. And the Kiddie Fresser is a garish statue that depicts an ogre or an ugly man gorging himself on a sack of babies. Pleasant enough. Nobody exactly knows why this statue is there, but one of the theories goes that a brother of Duke Berchtold, who founded Bern, went a little cuckoo during his time, and Berchtold Sr. apparently went off and a child-eating rampage through the city. Unfortunately, there was little evidence, but unfortunately, there's little evidence of it actually happening. Then there's a Devil's Bridge. It's like the people who already decided to hire the devil to help them build a tricky bridge in the Soren Gorge. Apparently, unaware of one craftsman's fiendish habits. The devil demanded saw the first thing to pass across the bridge, starting to sound like another tale that I've already done. Thinking they were clever, the village sent across a goat, and another version says a dog, and the devil tore it apart, and taking a fit of rage, the devil charged off to pick up a huge boulder to destroy the bridge, but when he returned, an old woman with a cross stood in the middle of the bridge. The devil charged off, dropping the boulder into the gorge, where it can still be visible today. And everyone lived happily ever after, apart from the goat, who didn't really recover from the devil tearing him to bits. And all. Then there's Arnold von Winkelried, if he existed. It was during the Battle of Sempach in 1386, the old Swiss confederate faced off against the Austrian army of Duke Leopold III, and the legend has it that the Swiss couldn't break through the Austrians' line of pikemen and faced in defeat until Arnold von Winkelried took it upon himself to charge at the enemy lines with a bunch of pikes, breaking up the Austrians and leading the Swiss to victory, but unfortunately died during the attack. Something to do with landing on dozens of sharpened metal pieces, which is always best to avoid. But people remember the event as one of the pivotal moments in Swiss history. But historians aren't entirely sure that Arnold was even a real person, let alone someone that just charged at enemy pikes alone kind of thing. and arrested in the canton of Uri in 1307 for a public slight. William Tell was told he could go free if he shot an apple from his son's head. As an excellent marksman Tell cleaved the apple in two and kept a spare bullet to murder Gessler, the man who sentenced him. Tell's two-finger response to the Austrians who occupied Uri at the time turned him into a legend in the early Swiss Confederacy. And there's also Anne Gardy, who was the last European witch. Erin was a servant in a rich household, and while all the children mysteriously became ill after finding needles in their food, Gardy was blamed, and after a long and drawn-out process, which even at the time was considered farcical, Gardy was sentenced to death against sorcery against the child. But it was exonerated of all charges in 2008. So yeah, it's really, with a lot of the stories there is a lot more to it, more to them, and I would check them out and all that. And yeah, I'll see you all later for the news, and sorry if it got I'll just get this out of the way with. I know that the Habsburgs didn't always rule the whole Roman Empire. I'm sorry if I kind of said that they did before they say that they ruled before they did to any of you history books and all that. So yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow and tonight with the news. England's in the quarter-final after beating Colombia. So yeah, au revoir for now, and I'll see you all very soon.